They said it could never be done, but here it is. Episode 5 of Are You There, Dog? It's me, Kerry. A little bit of trivia for you. Did you know that I carefully compose each unique jingle for each episode? Well, now you do. So here we are. How has your summer been? Hope you've had a great time. Hope your dog has survived the heat. I went to a dog festival at the weekend. Now, if you follow me on social media or you've worked with me, you'll know probably that I'm not a big fan of dog festivals, dog shows, generally. What is it that bothers me about them? I think that they are attended by people that love dogs, but perhaps don't always know enough about their dog's communications. When I go to these things, all I see are too many dogs that are really stressed out. So, for example, when I went to this festival at the weekend, as you're kind of queuing to get in, there's a lot of people standing very close together, and what I could see was a lot of dogs that were barking and throwing themselves around, and I could hear them talking about their dogs and explaining that their dogs were overexcited and things like that. But I think that for a lot of the dogs, that was possibly stress that was being misinterpreted as excitement. And then on top of that, there was a lot of equipment being used on the dogs that was uncomfortable, that wasn't allowing them to have space. And there was just simply dogs choking themselves. A lot of figure-of-8 slip leads being worn, which I think are horrible things anyway. In fact, it's not just me that thinks that. They are, widely considered to be quite aversive, cruel bits of equipment because, it's rope, tightens on their muzzle, rubbing them just below their eyes, tightens around their neck. It's unpleasant. Did you know? I don't know if I said this in one of the earlier podcasts, but I see a lot of spaniels wearing figure-of-8 slip leads, and these dogs will hurt themselves wearing them because they are so nose-driven, so scent-driven, that round their neck and round their nose, even though it is hurting them and damaging them, it won't stop them going after that scent. And did you know that there have been reports of spaniels running after prey with broken legs? Now, if a broken leg isn't going to stop them, a slip lead is not going to stop them either, but it will hurt them. Anyway, I digress. So yeah, there was just a lot of equipment that I would never use being used on these dogs, and because these dogs were getting so worked up, it was causing them more harm than would already be causing them. Do you know what I mean? What else was going on? So there's a lot of stalls that are great, and I met some people that I knew through social media in the dog world, and it was really nice to finally meet them in real life. But even in our conversations, there was a lot of acknowledgement that, there's a lot of dogs that shouldn't be here. So yeah, I think that these dog festivals can be good, but I think there needs to be a lot more education about knowing when your dog is over threshold, on what is appropriate equipment to be used for their safety and their well-being, and advice on what to do if your dog is showing any signs of overwhelm or not coping. I mean, there were some dogs that were there that were just barking non-stop. Just the entire time they were barking. And there was quite a few yanks on the leads that I was seeing, and I thought, if your dog is exhibiting those behaviours, they're communicating something to you, and that communication is probably, I'm a bit overwhelmed here, I'm not really coping very well. So perhaps it's not the place for them. I saw a few people there that said, I've left the dog at home, but I've come here because I wanted to have a mooch around the stalls. Brilliant. That's great. That's knowing your dog. Um, so I don't normally go to these kinds of things because I find it so stressful for me. I experienced a hell of a lot of trigger stacking, but I went because I thought, well, I'm always kind of talking about how much I don't like these things. But when was the last time I went to one? I should really go and see if they've changed. But yeah, I still wasn't keen on it. And even though, a lot of them do say, you can't bring a dog in if they're wearing a prong collar, they can't come in wearing an e-collar, which is great. There was still a hell of a lot of, aversive treatment happening, and dogs that were just crying out for space that weren't getting it. I took Norma, my dog, with me, but she's a weirdo, Norma. She's pretty bomb-proof outside. She couldn't care less about what anyone else is doing, and I knew that she would just like all the smells of all the food being there, which she did. That's all she was interested in. Dogs, no, not interested, couldn't care less, just looking at the food. So, so that's why I thought, well, I'll take her along. It's not something I would choose to do for her, but I knew that she wouldn't be bothered by it at all. But other dogs I've had, certainly not, they wouldn't have been able to come along to that sort of thing. So, yeah. Tell me in the comments, have you taken your dog to one of these dog festivals, dog shows type thing? What did you think? When you've learnt more about dogs' stress signals, have you found it harder to be at those sort of environments? The things that we would be looking out for that would be telling us that our dogs are not coping would be things like excessive barking, panting excessively, yawning when they're not tired, lip licking, whale eye when they move their eye to the side and they're just showing the whites of their eyes. It's called that because the way that a whale doesn't move their head, they just move their eyes around. Shake-offs. You'll notice when a dog is in an environment they're not coping with that there's a lot of shake-offs going on. They're, trying to manage how tense they are. There's loads and loads of other ones. But those are, just a few to give you some clues as to, what a dog might be experiencing. Another thing that I really didn't like was that there was in the middle, in the ring in the middle, there was at one point a border collie show where they were showing a border collie doing some herding, but they actually had ducks that were being herded around in the middle. I just thought that must have been so frightening and so stressful for those ducks. There was a lot of people standing around the outside, a hell of a lot of dogs barking. There's a microphone, with the host talking really loudly on that. There's just a lot going on, and then they've got a dog, pushing them around, telling them where to go. I just thought, this isn't cool. They're being used as entertainment. Yeah, didn't like it. Don't like it. Love to hear your thoughts on it though. And if there is the option on the platform you're listening to leave a review and leave a comment, please do. But not if you don't like it. Don't bother if you don't like it. So speaking of people not being able to interpret or read behaviour very well, which, this isn't a criticism, this is just an example of how things can go wrong. Because you don't know this stuff till you know it. And, I haven't always known this stuff as well. I've made enough mistakes in my life with dogs and other things. But, yeah, so I was on the beach with my dog, Norma. Now, Norma likes a dog that is super chill. She likes males, and she likes it if they'll just kind of stand there and let her kind of dance around them. She loves that. But if they are too boisterous, too over-aroused, too excitable, she doesn't want anything to do with them, and she'll happily tell them that as well. Now, there was a dog that came bolting over towards her, caught her by surprise, and she clearly wasn't enjoying it. So all of her movements were to get out of his way. and the human came over and said, "Oh, look, they're playing." And I was like, "Nah, she's actually trying to get away. Would you mind calling your dog back?" And Norma sprinted off in the opposite direction, and the guy said, "See, look, she wants to chase. She's enjoying it." I was like, "No, she's not. What's happening there is she's got the zoomies, and the zoomies doesn't always happen because they're enjoying themselves. The zoomies can happen when a dog is enjoying themselves, but in this instance, because I recognise my dog's communications, this is a release of stress for her. She is not enjoying this dog not giving her space, not giving her room, and so she's suddenly got this huge shot of cortisol and adrenaline in her system, and she's going to go racing now." So, yeah, just thought it was a really interesting example of how we sometimes will see what we want to see. Um, but yeah, I know Norm. I know the kind of dog she likes, and I know what she looks like when she's enjoying herself and what she doesn't look like, or rather, what she looks like when she's not enjoying herself. And I think it's important for people to know that. So here's the thing that I always recommend people do: have a look at your dog when they are at their most relaxed. Not when they're asleep, but when they're just mooching around and when they look at their most relaxed. Look at the shape of their ears. Look at the position that their tail is in. Look at their just look at their eyes. Look at everything that's going on and see this is what your dog looks like when they're at their most relaxed. So then you can see when that looks different, and you can start to see a pattern of what their communication is like in certain situations. So when they are excited for, perhaps, I don't know, you're playing a game with them, or you're scattering food or whatever, how do they look then? What happens to their ears? What happens to their eyes? If they're playing with a dog that you know that they like, they've met that dog loads of times and they get excited about it, what does that look like? And then we want you to look at your dog in another situation. For example, how do they look when they hear a firework? How do they look when a big truck goes past them and it's a bit noisy and a bit scary? What do their ears do then? It's really useful information. I've had a couple of clients send me videos of their dogs saying, not sure about this play with this other dog. Is this good play, or is this, problematic? Is this aggressive play? Which is great. I love it when people are curious about what's going on with their dog and their behaviour and blah, blah, blah. And so, and in both the videos, they were both excellent examples of play. But what was causing them the worry was the dogs had all their teeth out and big wide open mouths, and they were growling a lot and throwing each other around. But actually, it was their mouths being wide open that was actually the sign that they were having a really nice time. Everything was quite soft. Even though their mouth was open and you could see their teeth, it was all really soft and loose, and big floppy wide open mouths is a really good thing when dogs are playing. It's when they're very tight and there's ridges of tension on their face, and that mouth is very tight. That's a clear indicator. Not the only one, but that can be one of the clear indicators that dog play is not looking good. So, that's another thing to do. Look at your dog when they're playing with a dog they like. What does that look like? What is their tail doing? What is their mouth doing? What are their eyes doing? So I did a post today on Instagram and TikTok, and it was about anthropomorphism. And for those that don't know what that word means, it just means, applying human characteristics and behaviours onto non-humans. And so I was talking about how sometimes you might suggest that a dog is experiencing stress or discomfort or fear, and then get accused of anthropomorphism, or applying human characteristics onto the dog. Stop treating them like they're a person. Stop putting human feelings onto a dog. Which is nonsense, of course, because dogs are sentient beings and they're the same as us. They have sympathetic nervous system, they've got a parasympathetic nervous system as well. They have fight or flight, they have fear, they need comfort, they need space, they have anxiety, etc. They have joy, all kinds of things. So to point out a dog having these emotions is not anthropomorphism. But interestingly, it's the other things that people say that they don't realise is anthropomorphism, such as saying that a dog is being stubborn, or saying that a dog is being manipulative, or saying that a dog is pretending to do something. Look at them pretending to do that. These are all things that are real signs of anthropomorphism, because these are human behaviours and human insecurities, and none of them apply to dogs. They just don't apply to dogs. But it's very interesting that the people that argue against them having feelings are the same people that will use anthropomorphic arguments to justify aversive treatment of them. Oh, look, they're trying to be top dog. Oh, look, they're trying to one-up me. These aren't things that dogs do. These are things that humans do. That's anthropomorphism. And so, this applies also to people when they are, putting costumes on their dogs. And, you can clearly see that the dog isn't comfortable in that uncomfortable costume. Perhaps they've got antlers on, or, I don't know, pirate costume or whatever. And you point out they don't look comfortable in that. And these people, might argue, I would never hurt my dog. I would never do anything to hurt my dog. They're my baby. I love them so much. But you love them. You love them so much that you are blind to the anthropomorphism that is occurring here. Really love a dog. Don't dress them up like a human baby and do all of these things. Don't take them to a bouncy castle. Don't take them to a doggy disco and things like that, because you love them, because those are not dog appropriate things. Yes, it's absolutely fine to put a coat or a jumper on a dog if it's functional and they need it, and it serves a purpose and they benefit from it. Yeah, of course. But it's the other stuff that doesn't really benefit them, that is anthropomorphic by design and doesn't benefit them. They always say, a dog would much rather be sniffing a smelly bin or, mooching around a compost heap than going to a doggy disco or to a bouncy castle thing. These are things that humans enjoy. And not all humans at that. Although I must admit I do enjoy a bouncy castle, and I haven't been on one as recently as I would like to. I wonder if I can correct that. That's something for me to look into. That and trampolining. I really want to do some trampolining as well. Basically, I just want to jump up and down a lot. But, that's not your problem, listener. That's my problem. Something to look into. Anyway, I think that this is the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I was going to have a guest on this episode, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it. But they will be in the next episode. And they're going to be talking about how they were duped into working with trainers that did horrible things to their dog. I'm interested in the psychology of how intelligent, kind people are duped into working with these people that are not kind or intelligent. So yeah, we're going to do a little bit of talking and finding out about that, because I think it's fascinating. And if we can find out how these snake oil salesmen do their dirty tricks, then we can help warn people off them, I guess. But yes, in the meantime, stay safe, keep your dogs safe, enjoy your time with your dogs. Don't waste any of their precious time with you thinking about notions of hierarchy or dominance or alphas or any of that nonsense. Just enjoy your time with your dog. And leave a review, leave some stars, share this on social media and all of that. Bye-bye.